I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, first off, Commissioner Shale is absent today, so we'll suspend with the chair not able to make a vote or approve a motion. And I'd entertain a motion to accept or approve the agenda as presented, minus item number 2.
I second that.
Okay. Have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Approval of the minutes.
I make a motion, we approve the minutes of March 7th, 2023, as presented.
I'll second that. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Says, what, Linda Mood?
Yes.
Is that you?
Yes.
Come on up and sit down.
Oh, I timed that perfectly, didn't I?
You did. Okay.
Well, I wanted to discuss, some of our plans for future at Grass Creek. We've got as you well know, we've got an initiative to put in a USDA processing plan. One of our big concerns, having watched what transpired in Cody, was the fact that they received a grant to go ahead with an expansion of a plant up there, and they're very concerned about housing those workers. And our concern is the same thing. So as we begin to look at the planning process for this, we're currently in application with the USDA. This year, they have about $70 million in funds available for production plants that are small and very small. The classification there is 5 to 20 employees. They have various classifications. We would fall under very small, which is only one step above micro. So we'd want to start off with potentially between 5 and 10 employees, but our big concern is that we don't have housing for those people. And so I wanted to come before the board and propose a few ideas. One of them is, having had some talks with the Wyoming Business Council, there is opportunity for funding, either through them or in addition to them and at the federal level, that would allow us to do some sort of a nonprofit where we can put in housing. It could be any combination. This is a completely exploratory idea. I don't have any agenda here other than kind of wanting to know what your thoughts are on it, but it could be a combination of us potentially donating some of the land from the ranch and then putting that under a nonprofit, a community development nonprofit, that would then seek funding for additional housing. Or it could be where we actually acquire some land and through a community development nonprofit, but all of it centers around the fact that it would have to be a community development nonprofit. And so what I'd like to know is, what are Hot Springs County's, and we don't need an answer immediately or anytime soon. This is a slow roll project. In fact, on the USDA side, to give you an idea, the funding for the plant doesn't even begin until the end of this fiscal year, potentially, and it has a 3-year span to get the project done. So this is not something that has to be solved immediately. But given the fact that we're taking efforts to put something in out there, what we don't wanna do is we don't wanna have the greatest plant in the world built and people driving from, you know, Thermopolis or Worland, and especially after this winter. So our main concern is having housing for workers on site or very near. And so what I wanted to ask the board was, what are your feelings about supporting potentially everybody's heard of Forward Cody, right? I'm sure, maybe. They're a community development nonprofit. They've spent the last 15 years grabbing money from all kinds of different grants and development funds, and they've done an excellent job of it, quite frankly. They've put in all kinds of stuff in Cody and moved it forward. So this would be, I don't know, and I'm just throwing an idea out here, some sort of a Forward Grass Creek or something that gets us involved in, gets us a base system that would allow us to seek funds outside of private money.
Okay, well, you know, I think it would be worth exploring. You know, there's some discussion out there to, what's the deal that Sheree invited us to?
Yeah.
It's like the Economic Development Committee reestablishing it. And there's some discussion about looking at what that would be like, which,
For the county?
for the
County.
countywide, yeah.
Okay.
That would include, you know, I know she invited the commissioners and, I think she invited the town. I don't, some of the people that were on the EDC when it was here, I don't think that's probably before your time.
Right.
And, but it probably would be a good place to start looking at that. Probably for the county to be involved, and have, say, Forward Hot Springs County.
Well, our concern with that is I don't wanna, you know, I wanna be completely transparent here. We've got our hands full just with the projects we're doing right now in
Yeah.
Grass Creek.
Yeah.
I love Hot Springs County, but there's not enough of me or Brian, he's kind of my assistant, to really, I mean, we've got just enough going on. We've already, we're already taking a stab at being involved in the Watershed Improvement District to keep it going. We've had lots of talks with that board, and effectively what they didn't have is they didn't have a younger generation or anybody interested that wanted to keep it going, and it was effectively gonna die with them in terms of just, they're running out of steam.
Yeah.
Most of those guys are retiring now, and it's just, they've done the projects they wanna do. Well, we come in now and we wanna breathe new life into that, so that's taking a whole bunch of our time. Plus we have the plant, which is taking a bunch of our time. Plus we have just normal business operations, and so this is yet another thing. I talked to Kristen Fong, and I said, hey, what do we do? How do we qualify? She goes, well, look at the requirements, and I did, and I said, well, is there anything to prevent us from doing a Forward Grass Creek or something like that? She goes, no, there's not, and when you put it together, if you have support from your county, if you put it together, you know, we can jump behind that, and then that creates another tax base, more revenue, et cetera.
That's kind of where she's headed there, I mean, just inviting those entities is, it's the same, just like the county, we operate on a pretty lean budget. And, you know, we have statutorily required to do certain things, issue titles, and, you know, we have an entire planning department of one, and sitting behind you, and
Yeah, I
so
know.
there's really not a abundance of people
Right.
that, you know, the town's the same, they cover their duties, but I mean, there isn't we're not like a big place that has a full-time grant writer or
Right.
somebody to bird dog all these little projects, so I don't disagree that, you know, if we could stand back up. I know at one time, the commissioners used to give, I think it was 25,000 to the EDC, and the town gave money and then private money and that sort of imploded but, you know, I don't disagree that it's probably something worth looking at, to find somebody to bird dog all of those little things, as you can attest. When you start down those, there's lots of rabbit holes to fall off in.
Yeah, and I didn't find in my research, I didn't find that they were particularly complicated. I didn't find that you needed to have any skill other than just a good administrator and some common sense. And that's the thing that we found with the USDA. It turns out you can pick up the phone and actually ask them questions.
Especially
They're-
in Wyoming, they're right here and those people are pretty local.
Yeah, and their job, I mean, if you effectively boil their job down, and I talked to one of them, and he said, my job is to give money away. I was like, geez, you know? And I mean, in many cases, it's a dollar for dollar match or something like that, and that's fine. The important thing I would want the board to understand is that we're not here to seek funds from the county.
Yes.
We would do this entirely on a voluntary basis, and eventually the nonprofit would pick up enough steam that it could actually pay potentially for some of our time, but it's never gonna work out in terms of, I mean, it became obvious to us immediately when we talked about this, that we're not gonna get paid for our time. We're probably gonna end up putting far more in than we would ever get out, and that's fine, but the important thing for us, and again, I'm being as transparent as possible, this is somewhat selfish, we need a place to put those workers.
Yes.
You know, I just, we've seen enough people now transit out, from Thermopolis, it's just a little bit too far. New Orleans about the same way, and Matiti doesn't have enough population base to support that.
Well,
I'm not saying we wouldn't hire from those locations, and that might be great. Maybe there's an excellent butcher hanging out in New Orleans right now that's just waiting for an opportunity of a lifetime. That could be great for us. But ideally, what I see is, hey, Merrick's got 16 people that are effectively spending their entire day out there, so why couldn't we do that? You know, we got 5 houses or whatever we put in.
I don't disagree, you know, the EDC was sort of like that, I know I think the council had, a member on it, I know there was a board member, it had just kind of spiraled down about the time I started, but, that served on that board and looking for just the opportunities you're talking about, and if you found not just Grass Creek, there might be other opportunities if you had that available for other people to say, yeah, I'd bring people, but I'm somewhere else and it's rural, it's hard to get people in our county, but I don't know where that'd be, but.
Yeah.
But anyway, I don't think we're opposed, I don't.
No, I think it's a great idea. I mean,
Okay.
it's just understand the complications too with, being able to have housing for people, that's critical in our entire community. And you're far enough out there, I used to drive out there all the time, I worked out there for a lot of years, and so I drove out there every day, back and forth to Grass Creek, and so, yeah, it makes there used to be a lot of houses out there, actually.
That's what we've heard, yeah, we went over to the historical society and looked at, hand-drawn maps and things, and there was an actual town out there.
Yeah.
It was even the store. I
Yeah.
never stopped at the store.
That's right, yeah. Years ago.
And school.
And the school.
So I think it's a great idea, and, the benefit of your project is I'm highly in support of that individually, just for the self-reliance as a community, to be able to have some place that you can take your homegrown meat to and have it processed locally, and I think for just the self-reliance as a community, that's a really good plan. I'm not very familiar with how I know how to set up a nonprofit corp, but I'm not sure how housing development fits into a nonprofit corp. That's kind of new territory for me.
Well,
How that structures, or if the housing is part of the pay, the benefit that comes, I'm not sure how that all works out, how that balances out.
well, effectively, the way it would work is the nonprofit would be the recipient of the grants, and they would be the owners of the real estate, and they would have to own the actual housing. And then our company would lease it from them, and we would provide that as a benefit for our workers. So it could be a 30-year lease or something, it could be a very significant lease, but the point is, it would belong to the community, the nonprofit community development. And that's how they've structured the deals in Cody. Cody Ford owns the actual real estate, and then just has a simple amortization schedule where they lease it back, and they go, look, we can recoup the funds of this grant. I think they just got a $2 million grant for that plant expansion up there. And we expect that to be, paid back in X number of years. So the problem that they're having is what they didn't do, and I got big bug eyes when I went and talked to them, is I said, well, they said one of our genuine concerns, and I won't talk about who it was where are we gonna put these people? I mean, they're offering $18 for somebody to work the drive-through at McDonald's, and I don't know how you're gonna get 150, skilled butchers. Or maybe even 100, and then 50 of them are just guys that put stuff in a box, but my point is, they counseled me and they said, before you start wading into this, start thinking about where those people are gonna live. And I went home and had a meeting with the family and I said, hey, guys, are they gonna camp in our backyard? And that's when we talked to Kristen Fong and said, well, is it possible to structure a deal where we could get potentially some matching funds or something if we donate land? And she said, yeah, you can do that, but you need to get the support of your county first. And so with a nod from you, what I would do is just put together a simple white paper that would explain kind of the talking points that I would forward to you, and you're welcome to, as we begin to develop what that is, I'll send you something that you can say to the community, this is what we think this would look like, and if you get objections to it, I can come in and you can beat me to death on it, or whatever works for you.
Okay,
Okay.
sounds good. Let's see if we can find one of those things on Cherie's thing, and maybe we get you to come.
Yeah, any contacts would be helpful. I just called the Wyoming Business Council out of the blue and eventually got to the right person, but, I'm willing to chase all those leads down, and when Brian gets back, he's on vacation right now, but when he gets back, he and I kinda go off on those projects together, and,
Yeah, we talked to Kristen, so,
okay, excellent,
so she's our rep for the county, so.
okay, great.
Anyway,
That's
Great.
all I had, but thank you for your time.
Thank you,
You bet.
appreciate that.
If you go on the county website for commissioners, my email address is there if you wanna send some ideas you're talking about.
Okay, so I send the document to her?
yeah, send it.
Yeah, it'll just be,
She actually looks at her emails.
okay, it'll be a summary that you can share with people, it's really,
Okay, thank you.
oh, good seeing you.
Yes, sir. Thank you, gentlemen.
Yep, see you, Bo. So, we're gonna jump around here a little bit. We could do Jill, number 6, approval of county officer bonds.
Chairman Ryan, this is just kind of a little formality. The statute requires me to provide you in writing that I reviewed all the bonds that were issued for all of the county officials. And so there's really no action you need to take or anything, it's just
You just need to know.
letting you know that I've looked at them.
Alright.
And they all seem to be in compliance.
Did they
and
change-
lawfully issued.
They changed the amount of the
I
bonds
think
this year?
I think we did go up.
Well, I mean, I think the legislature just,
Yes.
so I suppose that'll be next year's bond, then, not or-
So what I need to research, it goes into effect July 1st, but what I had last heard is they're not going to make us change our bonds until we are reelected. So what we had in place hopefully will work for 4 years. If not, then yes, we'll go through the process of, but we actually, in anticipation of that, upped the bonds ourselves anyway, because there wasn't a price difference. So, yeah.
And most of them are more than what is required.
Okay,
There's more than one bond company, it looks like?
No, that's the other thing that the legislation changed. If you wanna talk about the sureties, you can, otherwise we've had extreme discussion. You can't hardly even give the second surety, which we have no idea where that came up in statutes, but, that's why it went to the legislation. Nobody could give the second surety, even if you could give the dollar amount, so the legislation has changed it to be one surety with the dollar amount, and then hopefully it'll either be effective July 1st or in 4 years, when we have to re-up our bonds, but we are in, according to the old statute and the new statute, I think we will be in compliance, so.
alright.
Good.
Is this supposed to be a regular thing? This is the first time I've heard this discussion.
Well, our court clerk is quite, our county clerk is quite thorough. And
So she brings that.
I did review these in
Quite
2019.
thorough. No, I have to remember that. Quite thorough. That's a good way to put it. Quite thorough.
You might be seeing a lot of new things.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Shane's not here. approval of the 2023 Wyoming Airport Coalition membership registration. So, we normally register with the Airport Coalition. It's a group of both FBOs and other sponsors, you know. It's not a lot of airports that the commissioners are directly oversee. A lot of them have an airport board, or they have some other organization that oversees them, but ours is we oversee the airport directly, and so we've always been a member of the Wyoming Airports Coalition, and dues are up. I don't remember how much they are.
$100 for general aviation membership, and we can have multiple contacts where they send out their
Stuff.
informational stuff, and then.
We, you know, it's an interesting organization, but it's almost all the airport people in the state. Jack and I went to the convention last year, was in Pinedale. And you see, you know, YDOT's there, and you know, the feds are there, and you get a nice look at those people. Usually the YDOT Aeronautics Commission meets one day at the end of that commission, and so you can present to them, which we did 2 years ago in Casper, and kind of get your projects in front of them and say, hey, this is what we've got, so. I think it's worth the $100 to join, so. We have a motion to make a motion to accept, or to renew our
Okay.
application.
I'll make that motion. I move that we accept, or that we go ahead and join membership for the Wyoming Airport Coalition, the 2023 Wyoming Airport Coalition membership for $100.
I'll second that. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Item 2, approval of facility use agreement for annex meeting room. Do we normally approve these?
This is the one that we started, I can't remember when that was. It started with needing a use form up at the airport, and
So we started doing it here
yes,
too,
we
okay?
started doing it here too.
Becky's really efficient.
She is very. So, okay, do we have the people that regularly use this room, do we have that, such a thing?
Not yet, Jill and I were discussing that, thought maybe once a year it would be nice for them to fill out the facility use, just so we have our contact information and that, but at this time, no. Since this is a new form this fiscal year, we haven't had one.
Okay. So this is for US Congressman Harriet Hagerman for some of her remote. What is
Remote
she?
office, I believe it's called.
Remote office hours, it says. Okay. And this is that 2/6/23?
That's when she signed it.
I see. Okay,
Is it just the one day?
It's just the one day in May, yes, that
May
is
4th.
correct.
eight
And
to 5, okay?
this will be, Jill can address the insurance portion of
this-
it.
This facility use application, since this is kind of a new thing we're doing, we might amend, and this is kind of a working draft, and depending on what different facilities we use, so for the airport, we did require insurance, just because there was kind of a big event going on up there. And so for this, really,
Driving fast.
we didn't feel like that was probably fair to kind of boilerplate it, so I said that was fine if we took that off.
Okay. Other discussion? So I
We'd
guess,
have to.
do we have a motion, is that how that goes, or do they just present them, or? Probably,
Just present them like anything else you guys have to approve, and
I guess,
it
motion
requires.
for my signature on this form.
Yeah, but the official motion,
That's the official motion.
I second that.
Okay. Motion and second. Any other discussion? Hearing that, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
My mind is thinking, there's a lot of people who use this thing.
There are.
We could have a big list. Every, like a consent
Just do a
agenda or
consent
something.
agenda.
For,
Practice.
for all those. I need to write that. What did you say about Becky? About Becky? I need to write that down. I keep.
She said thorough, so it's a pain in the neck, but she said thorough.
I don't think this is a bad thing, Becky. I think it's a good thing.
Yeah.
To be keeping track, you know, we give, you have a,
Well, if we do
you
have
have a
some
toggle
damage.
to the door, or you go,
Yeah.
I wonder who used that last. So
Yeah, right.
I think it's important. Okay, item 3, ratification of cooperating agency response letter to BLM. So we got a letter from BLM asking if we would like to be part of a cooperating agreement for EIS, Resource Management Plan amendments for updated utility scale solar energy planning on federal public lands. And I said, wow, that sounds exciting. I'm glad Paul is that member on that committee. And anyway, we had to respond. So I guess we're just ratifying my signature, on this agreement. I mean, it doesn't obligate us to anything, it just makes sure we have a seat at the table when they get ready to come out with the, MOU. And then if we didn't wanna be part, we could, but if you're not part, it's hard to get after the fact.
Yeah.
So, anyway,
Well, I can move that we ratify, the, letter of intent to be a cooperating agency in response, with BLM and in response to their request.
okay, I'll second that. Do you have any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Motion passes. Item 4, Tricia's not here, is she?
Do you want me to go get her?
Yeah, is she here? I can't
She's
remember.
not, oh, is she not gonna be here?
I think she told me she wasn't gonna be here.
I think you've had the discussion, you know what the recommendation is.
I did, I think she was, so, yeah, so it came, Wyoming Public Health came with on the biennium, they came with some money for gambling addiction. And they wanted to give us $4,859.10 for the next 2 years. So just a little over $2,400 a year. And I called Tricia, the public health, and said, do we have some way to qualify? You know, we have a prevention, you're on the prevention thing, that they give us significant money, and they've done a lot of good things. But, it looked to me like you were gonna spend all $2,400 of it, just trying to set up, figure out a way to spend it in accordance with their, rules that they have. And it would not fall, it could not fall under our current prevention, because gambling is not listed in there. And we think of all the stuff. Anyway, so Trish worked on it, she talked to Becky, she talked, I can't remember who else she talked to, but
She talk to, I think, the Department of Health a little bit, because there's no guidance on it, there's no guidelines really,
And obviously that's who she works for. So she talked to their people, and before it got done, she recommended that we deny the money, just because she felt like we'd spend most of the money just trying to figure out how to spend it correctly. And it's not enough money you're not gonna get much of a campaign bill for $2,400.
Right.
Especially if you have to spend 3/4 of it in, administration getting it amped up. So I think she was hoping that more people would not take the money and they would bring it around to better utilize the funding, to find an avenue. And, you know, prevention has done that, you know, it's reinvented itself several times, and then, I don't know, it's been 3 years, 4 years, maybe 4 years, when that money used to be doled out to private contractors, and they came back and the state said, no, give it to the counties, run it through the counties. And our county set up our own deal that works through the County Commissioners Association. But we have a little glitch in that's different than others, is that we ran ours through the school. So, our prevention specialist is actually an employee of the school that we pay for. But we just felt like it was important to be able to meet the youth as well as the adult population, that you needed to be more in the school. But I don't know how much, I don't know, anyway, she just didn't think that it was workable, so.
Yeah, I would probably agree, with small office staff and then overwhelmed with red tape.
Yeah, and anyway, so it doesn't flow into our other prevention very well. That was her biggest concern. If we could figure out a way to funnel it into our regular prevention program, but not so this year anyway, so. Anyway, I won't entertain a motion to deny the funding allocation, 485910.
I second that.
Okay, a motion second. Is there any other discussion? Okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. I think I remember that here in a minute. It's actually the last date you can have a third meeting in. Okay. Item 5. Approval of support letter for the Wyoming Discovery Days. So they've asked us to write a letter of support. Is this for a specific one or just in general?
Wyoming Cultural Trust Fund.
This is for the Wyoming Cultural Trust Fund. I don't know, have you read the letter?
What's that?
Have you read the
I
letter?
did, yeah.
Okay,
Sounds good to me.
okay, I'll make a motion.
Yeah, I'll make a motion that we accept and sign the letter for the Wyoming Cultural Trust Fund. It will be signed by Chairman Ryan.
Okay, I'll second that. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay,
that's the next one.
and this is for the same Discovery Center, correct?
Cultural Trust Fund, Petroglyph Wall and Waterway.
That's over here at the at
The Nature and Discovery.
the Nature and Discovery Center, okay?
I can make a motion that we support the letter for the Petroglyph Wall and Waterway, and requiring Chairman Ryan's signature.
I second that. A motion and second. Is there any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Oh, we're getting close. Um, Send Shane a
3 minutes.
text. I guess we're gonna wait a minute until the budget amendment.
Notice is, Madam Mayor, the Bureau of Reclamation, that their letter states that their voice is 131% as a 30-year average of 611 AF. As of March 1st, Boyson Reservoir is 79% full.
Huh?
And so I'll be adding to that 131% as we speak.
It's finally starting to melt over there.
Yeah.
It, man, it's been nasty in Shoshone. We still have more snow than, they still have more snow than we do,
Yeah.
you never see Shoshone with that much snow. Okay. So we have a public hearing on the, budget amendment. And at this time, I would open the public hearing and ask for public comment. For a second time, I'd ask for public comment.
Can I ask specifically what the budget amendment is in reference to?
So the greatest, budget amendment was, we received some funds, LATCF, for COVID money. And, it was $910,000. So, which was a nice shot of money, but it wasn't in our budget, so while we were having a budget amendment, we went ahead and cleaned up some other little items that we've had come up. We had some additional revenue for the sheriff
Oh, okay.
and anyway, we included them all, but the bulk of it
Okay, thank you for clarifying that.
was to get the budget, you know, both the income and then it needs to show on the expenditure side.
Thank you.
So that it works. Anyway. And for a third time, we'd asked for public comment. Hearing none, at this time, we'll close the public hearing. And, normally I explain what the budget amendment is for, but we already did that, so we're ahead of there, but, anyway, it was a nice chunk of money and actually just kinda showed up. You know, even after we budgeted in July, it just dropped in our, it's like, oh, look at that. I don't know where they got it, but, it wasn't, yeah. Anyway, so, gotta make motion to.
Yeah, I'll move that we accept resolution 2023-02 to approve budget amendment number 1 totaling $936,808.02, including $910,991.29 from the LATCF funds, $1,007.46 sheriff revenues, $22,744.67 in unanticipated revenue, and $2,064.60 in insurance reimbursement.
Okay, I'll second that. Other discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion passes. Sign the resolution as well. So, we're still waiting about for, Frank, I see you're here, you wanna come up and give us your proposal?
We've got a computer problem with running our HVAC system. It's old, and in fact, as we're talking right now, we're down, the computer's down, I can't get it back up. So Long happened to be here one day when I was having problems with it, and they put a proposal together for us to upgrade and make it all so it's accessible on about any computer as long as you have the right credentials to get in it. Cause we're running a Java system right now, and if we upgrade a Java system, we're probably gonna lose everything. And it keeps telling me to upgrade, and they tell me not to. Plus, we're running Windows XP, which is 20 years old, something like that, or something like that. And they say not to upgrade that either, because if we do, it will possibly lose everything, or we will be down until they can figure a way to get it back up.
Okay. Have you talked to anybody else about, you talked to Phil about this?
No, I haven't.
Okay, well, he's not here. And Long's the one that furnishes the system we have.
Yes. And they'll be able to log in from where they're at remotely instead of coming here. Like, they might have to come tomorrow to help me get set back up, which will save me cost too that way.
Well, you had to put a new, do you upgrade the hardware on the system, or is it just,
I believe it's gonna go all into a whole new computer, a whole new system. I haven't read the whole thing completely.
okay? The other question is, when you're starting to talk about people being able to log into our
Right.
system,
Right.
I don't know if you've run this by the IT guy.
I haven't ran my team yet.
Okay, well,
Yeah.
before I'm, ready to give you approval, he needs to be,
Okay.
he needs to be vetting this,
Okay.
cause, I can tell you, he takes really interest when you start talking about somebody outside being able to log in and what that looks like and how you,
I did try calling him today and he hasn't called me back yet to find out what he thought about it.
okay? So, I think before we approve it, I think we need to include him in that,
Okay.
in that discussion, just to make sure that, well, we have a policy that says if you're gonna do something with the computers, you gotta talk to him first.
Right.
But I know, I have a system that, that talks, the people that put it in can talk in my facility. And, Dean actually does some stuff for us as well, and he would not let them put it in the way they wanted to, cause he just said, that just gives you way too much access
Right.
to your system, and he said, I know with the county, it's even greater, that his concern of you hacking into the county and getting some of our information, so. I'm not opposed, and I can understand your concern.
Right.
But, and Long is the one we're working with as we speak, and then XP, wow,
Yeah,
can't imagine you can even find a computer that'll run it.
I got one. It's telling me to upgrade right now as I was coming over here and I'm saying, no. It tells you about every 4 hours to upgrade everything.
So, I don't know, what's your preference, do you want to approve it based on
No, I'd rather
Dean's,
have some, I'd rather
Dean's
have
approval?
Dean look at this, his area of expertise is.
So we're only talking about
Two understanding.
2 weeks. Well, I was saying we could approve it based on his approval.
That sounds reasonable.
That would shorten the thing before the next meeting
Right.
on the 4th or whatever it is, so that if we approve it, and then we run it by Dean, before.
Yeah.
You know, we can sign it now, but
I'll run it by Dean and email you guys what he says.
yeah,
Everything he says.
Let's have Dean, and then before Becky, she'll make sure that we have the right stuff, so.
Yeah, that sounds reasonable.
Okay.
Commissioner Ryan, my other question would be budget, is it,
Well, I think it isn't in budget, I don't know, you probably don't have that much money in
I
your budget.
don't, not that much, no.
So, my concern is it would become an emergency expense pretty quick if you, didn't plan on it, so. I'd say we take it out of his budget, and then we might be
At
having
the end of the year.
another
Okay.
budget hearing at the end of the year,
Okay.
so,
Okay.
okay? Also, you probably ought to have the,
I looked at it,
you look at it.
She's looked at it, she's one recommended to call Dean and Dean has just hasn't called me back yet.
and there's a little, I don't speak this IT language like Dean. And
Okay.
it appears to be, there's some room for some flexibility in
Yes.
here, whether the county supplies a server or what all we'll need as far as software and things like that, so that gives me a little bit of heartburn as to what ongoing costs would be as well, so I would feel more comfortable after our IT guy
Do you want us to
reads
wait
this and actually knows what
before
some of these words mean.
we approve this,
Um,
and approve it on the meeting on the 4th, after Dean has had a chance?
I think it's gonna be needed, but I would feel a lot more comfortable if Dean kind of picked at it first.
Okay,
So he'll be here tomorrow. He comes to town tomorrow.
so, maybe we should wait until,
Ready to write, yeah.
table it until the 4th. So that Dean, Dean has some real concerns and wants to change some of this. Long's just like Johnson Controls.
If we delay it till next meeting, tonight, will it cause any problems?
It might slow it, I may not be able to get it until the end of the summer. I have to call them, I'll check with them before you guys are done today and let you know, but they said the sooner I can get it, the faster we can get the program up. But we still gotta wait for Dean tomorrow, so.
Well, let's approve it. I don't wanna be having the computer down.
No.
So, okay.
I think Dean can work out whatever he needs
Yeah,
to work out,
I'll
right?
get Dean hooked up with their IT guy, and they can
Right.
battle it out tomorrow if they have to, do whatever they gotta do.
Before we move forward, yeah.
In fact, I might have their IT guy here.
Make a motion.
Yeah, I'll make a motion that we go ahead and approve, the, web-based, proposal for the web-based building automation system through Long, depending upon Dean's, correspondence and approval before we move forward.
Okay, I'll second that. We have any other discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah, thank you, Frank.
Not quite sure, you wanna come up, Jeremy? Or Shane? Look at the sheriff's back there.
You can make the dishes.
Mine's pretty easy today, it's just an approach agreement for Build It LLC. It is, one of the lots out in our new subdivision off of Rimrock Road.
Okay. So is it his lot, or is he just,
No, it's not his lot, he's just the contractor on it. So he's, they can't get started until they get an approach in there with, the dirt work. So they wanted to go ahead and get the process going and
okay?
do everything they need to do. So I think Rod Hart's gonna be doing the dirt work for them, and then they'll come in and, stick build the house, so.
Okay. So, and they've given us the, $50. I'd make a motion that we approve the approach agreement with the Mailed It LLC, County Road 35. And the $50 is enclosed.
Second it?
A motion second. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
All right.
Aye. It's exciting, something's going on. Is that one of the planned approaches on there? Or is it?
No, all the planned approaches are in this would be a residential approach.
I see. Off that county road, is that on the one going east and west, or is that the one?
That's on the one going east and west, on Rimrock. Lane 12 runs north and south, Rimrock runs east and west, so. It's not very far from one of their approaches, but there's a big gully in between their approach and where this lot is, so.
They have to build an approach on it.
Yep, they gotta build their own approach onto there, so.
Okay,
All right,
thanks, Shane.
Thank you.
thank you.
That's the right name. Okay, down to the White Hawk TAP grant for Old Airport discussion. So I had asked the mayor if he would come in and, come up, have a seat. So we're into, we got into a little bit of discussion with the TAP grant at the old airport about, funding, you know, one of the things that TAP likes to do is, if you're gonna develop some trails, they like you to go through the process of having a study done. And, we're currently sponsoring a study for the Bighorn Nature Conservancy, or nature, over here, a study for them, which they're just about finished with. And, I talked to the people at Wyandotte, what we did the other day when David came here. And, you know, he said, yeah, I mean, they like you to do these studies to have a good plan before you go there and ask for money. And the discussion has come up is whether the Nature Conservancy, if they apply for construction money in this cycle, would that preclude us from applying for another, planning grant? But, you know, that nature, the Bighorn, whatever, is not an actual county entity. We let that money flow through because they have to go through a governmental entity to get the money from Wyandotte. So we did it last time, but the Nature Conservancy, that's a joint powers board, and half the people on the joint powers board, the city appoints. So I had the thought that, maybe we could ask the city if they decide to go for a construction grant, that they would run it through the city. And, the people from the Discovery Center couldn't be here, either one of them, they're the normal spokespeople. There was some discussion that they felt like we shouldn't apply for money because it would,
We would give it their opportunity.
it would inhibit their opportunity. I don't know where I think if you were applying for 2 construction cycle grants,
You wanna call Sarah?
yeah, I will here in just a second, that it would, but we're gonna call, Wyandotte and talk to, were both of them gonna be there?
Sarah and David.
So Sarah and David. Sarah is Sarah Jane Ellis, she's the, local project coordinator for Wyandotte. And David is the guy that we met here the other day, and, he works for Sarah. And this TAP grant, I actually sit on this TAP grant in Cheyenne through the Wyoming County Commissioners Association. So, creates some.
So the thought basically is that the city can apply, and we can go ahead and move forward with our, without any conflict, and
Right.
without denying the potential opportunity.
Yes. Yes, and I think if you were applying for construction, for both of us were applying for construction, that you probably run the risk that they wouldn't fund one of them. But where one of them's a planning grant, and one of them's not, I think, they don't specifically set aside money for planning, but they try to fund the planning ones because they feel like they're important, so.
Local government, this is Sarah.
Local government, Sarah, this is Tom Ryan, how are you today?
Good, how are you?
I'm good. We're in a commissioners meeting. Commissioner Galovich and I are here. Commissioner Shale is absent today. The county attorney's here, and the clerk, and, our admin, and a number of visitors, including the newspaper. And, we also have the mayor of Thermopolis, Adam Estenson, here today to talk about this. You know, we visited the other day, and then David was nice enough to stop by and visit us, and actually, got here on the end of our commissioner meeting, so he got to meet all the commissioners and our new admin, so it was,
That's great, and actually, hold on just one moment, I'm gonna get him on the phone as well, okay?
okay.
Just one second.
Maybe.
Okay, fingers crossed. Did I
Okay.
get Dave on there?
Yes, Dave here.
Oh, you're so good, Sarah. So, the discussion has come up when we visited with Dave the other day, and whether we can apply for a planning grant for our old airport and some of that discussion that we want to do. And if the, Discovery Center decides to go for some construction money this year, if that is doable. Now, we do have, it's the Bighorn Basin Nature and Discovery Center, and it's governed by a joint powers board that the county provides half of the board members, and the city provides half the board members. So, it looks to me like the city should be able to sponsor their grant, and, anyway. And anyway, I'm just curious, so we decided we'd talk about it today, it's a little bit, Commissioner Shale is not here, and his wife sits on that board, so they have a little bit more insight, but, anyway. What are your thoughts?
Dave, you wanna go ahead and take it?
Sure. Yeah, so I think, like when we spoke when I was up there a couple of weeks ago, I think that the best way forward is to, if the Children's Discovery Center is looking to pursue construction funding this cycle, to engage the city to see if the city would provide the sponsorship for that project so that the county can move forward with applying for the planning grant. That way I think that it minimizes the risk that the funding committee would choose one project over the other, and I think that if that were the outcome, that puts either entity kind of on hold for another year. So I think that's the best way forward to kind of separate those, and then I think it gives a better chance for both to be funded.
Okay, I don't disagree, and some of the Discovery Board was concerned that we would even apply because it is a limited pot. Was trying to explain a little bit the difference between funding a planning grant and versus a construction grant. You might talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, absolutely. So with the planning grant, what we're looking at, of course, is a smaller ask. I believe we kind of threw an arbitrary number out there of around, maybe 150 to 200,000, just depending on, the scope of work that the county was interested in including in that planning study. So much smaller, and then those tend to rise to the top. With our funding committee, when they're evaluating applications and kind of looking at, that being the first step in the process to work towards, you know, building something eventually. So those tend to usually float to the top, and so, there's usually a few more of those, or a lot more of those handed out, you know, in any given cycle. And I think with the construction on the other side, you know, depending on, the ask that the, Children's Discovery Center would be considering, we have to kind of look at that. So it's like, well, you know, one is a much smaller ask, and the other one going into construction could be fairly significant, you know, depending on, if they're looking to do a single phase or kind of break it up. So I think that, you know, when these go to our committee, we're gonna be looking at the available funds that we have to award, and then weighing that, taking that into consideration and weighing that against the other projects and the scoring that comes out of the application review and where all those projects tend to fall. You know, in years past, the committee has recommended to reduce the amount of funding for construction projects, maybe scaling it back into a smaller phase or taking it to a design phase, which is already where the Children's Discovery Center project is. So that could affect the outcome of that, again, just depending on how much money we have available to hand out this cycle.
Okay, so my point was, and you made it for me, thank you, that if you're applying for 2 construction grants, then you'd definitely be in a competing process. Probably not so much when one of them is a planning grant.
Correct. Yeah, I would say there's a little bit less competition. You know, it still comes down to the quality of the application and then the points received during the scoring on that. And so when that ranking comes out, we'd still be looking at, you know, where the planning application kind of falls, and then where the construction, they still all kind of fall together. They're not, you know, they're not scored separately. You know, we still rank them, you know, from top to bottom all together. But those planning grants tend to, because they have a lower points available, they tend to rise to the top unless the application comes in and is completely lacking, and then it receives an extremely low score across the board. One thing I might add to that, we did talk about if the county were to decide to apply for both projects, you know, the only condition that we have that would typically allow 2 awards to happen is if one were considered a Safe Routes to School project. But I think where we kind of run into you know, whether either of these qualify directly as a Safe Routes to School project might be, you know, that might be a little harder to accomplish because we're not specifically, you know, building pathway to a school or between schools or, you know, within the community or there. While these are connected, they're not primarily going to be for that purpose. So that might be add a little bit of difficulty into having a single entity apply for and be awarded both projects.
I agree. As far as the Safe Rights to School, you just don't know how good our grant writer is. So you'll have to wait and see. Anyway. Okay, well, I think the town, Adam, would you like to speak?
Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
So one question I have, so the correspondence that I've had with the Discovery Center is that this will be a multi-phased project. Now, if the town becomes a sponsor of the first phase, would we have to be, like, if we had something come up in 2 years from now, let's say that we wanted to go after a grant, would we be able to kind of swing the pendulum back to where the county might be in a position to sponsor on another phase? Or are we kind of locked in throughout the process at that point?
No, so yeah, there would be no commitment from the town or the county to carry all phases once the first construction phase is awarded. So yeah, absolutely. You know, you could kind of pass that off and say, you know, this coming year, the town is going to be the sponsor on the project, and then next year the county, and you can kind of go back and forth. Really, it really depends worked out, worked out on that end. And, there might even be the opportunity, if there are no other interests from the county or the city, down the road, and we're looking at, the ability to get the project constructed faster, we would absolutely be open to, the county and the town applying for phases at the same time, right? To take, 2 phases and kind of work on it together, as long as we're keeping those, the entities separate or sponsored. So that absolutely can happen as well.
Interesting, okay? I don't know, David, if you were on there, that was Adam Estenson, he's the mayor of Thermopolis. So I don't know if you were on the call yet when we did that, so.
Thank you.
Okay, well, you have further questions?
No, I think that's,
Paul, you
Yeah,
have further
I
questions?
just, Cherie's concern is that, our application would hinder theirs, and from what Dave says, it doesn't sound like that to be the case at all.
It's a limited pool of money, I'm not discounting that, but, serving on the TAP committee for 8 years, I can tell you that, planning grants they're looked at differently than construction grants. I agree with Dave in that, we do score those, but, they raise up differently than the others, so.
One of the other questions is, the timeline of the application grant for the Discovery Center, are they ready to move forward?
So you have to commit, if I'm correct, we have to submit a letter of interest first, correct? By the 15th?
Yes, that's correct, and that is open right now, and we would have to have that. So I'll be sending follow-up, reminders out to all the municipalities and counties, reminding them that deadline is approaching. But let's say, in the event that we did not receive a statement of intent for the Discovery Center project, it would not be eligible this phase for funding. So we make every attempt that we can to make sure everybody gets those reminder emails. If, once that deadline passes, we don't have a lot of options to go back and allow something to come through after the fact.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, thanks for taking the time to visit with us. You were awfully quiet, Sarah.
First time for everything.
Well, I didn't want to say that in the public meeting.
There is one thing I would just like to add, and that is, take heart, for the county and the town applying at the same time. We see similar circumstances for Ventura County and Casper and Laramie County and Cheyenne, and so it's not completely out of the ordinary.
Yes, I agree. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you guys.
Further questions?
Thank you.
All right. Thanks, guys. We'll be talking to you. Yep, you too. See ya. Bye.
Bye.
Okay. I
And
guess,
talking to David last time, he did say that, kind of towards your, comment, if one entity is gonna cover 2 things, it's best also to do it in staggered fiscal years. So,
I think, this is the reason you have a joint powers board,
it is.
is so we can collaborate on these things and.
And get both entities, it gives both entities involvement in the process, so. You shouldn't have heartburn either entity sponsoring
Right.
a grant
And
that
it-
goes through.
Yeah, and it'll be on our agenda tonight too, we're discussing letters of support for the Discovery Center, and then we'll also be discussing this with
We
council.
already did those.
Yeah.
But it's my understanding from the conversation that, if we apply for the TAP grant that we want to, it's not gonna be different than it's the same competition if Ventura County applied, for
It is.
example.
It is, to Cherie's letter that it's a limited pool. And they don't say we're gonna take, you know, $500,000 or $1 million and give for planning, and the rest is going here, but planning gets different consideration from the board, I mean, because, you know, the last thing they want you to do is come and ask for $1 million, and then go, but we really don't have a plan. You know, we don't, but we know what we want, it's in our mind, we drew it on a bar napkin last week. They don't want that, I mean, they wanna see some formal engineering being done, anyway, I think, you know, short of us not asking for a grant, which I'm not in favor of, because I think the grant for us would help our, business council request as well, to show that, you know, when we met with those people and they talked about, you know, you need to fill in these holes, to tighten up your grant, and this is kind of the avenue that we're heading towards. I think it would go a long ways to help them say, yeah, we're actively seeking a plan to consolidate the trails and do some of those things.
I would agree with the fact that the county applying for 2 grants would not be wise.
Yes, yes.
But I think if the city applies and the county applies, I don't know, I just, I don't see that, you know, some of the concerns that Sheree has mentioned here, I don't know if that's, as much as a concern as she has expressed. I hope not. I mean,
I agree with you, I'll just put it, I agree with you, I don't think it's, anyway, I'm sure that they're, defensive for their position. You know, they've been working on it a long time, they put a lot of effort into it, and I can appreciate that, but
and I can as well.
anyway. I would actually entertain a motion from you to, for us to submit a letter of interest for a planning grant in this cycle.
Okay, I have a motion that we submit a letter, a planning grant, for White Hot for a TAP grant.
We don't have to say the value yet, that'll come
No,
out with
right.
the application, so.
Right, with the application. And then we can go ahead and move forward with that.
I second that. Do we have other discussion?
Commissioners, I will have a question for David, since we're the sponsor and I've been, the one who's responsible for putting everything in for them, if
I think
we
we
need to
can,
coordinate with the town to ensure that, because they did tell me they are planning on sending in their letter of
So-
intent.
so
So I wanna
then-
make sure I don't mess it up for any entity.
so I think, that after the town talks today, so by them saying to you that they're interested, I think that then the town would,
Assist with this.
you'd wanna coordinate with the town and with the Discovery Center, and, you know, the part of the TAP grant that there's coming through the county will stay part of the counties until it's finished. So, and I'm not convinced that we can't, safe routes for schools. I see that being a lot of educational use, and where you're bordering, I mean, the high school and the Discovery Center are on the same piece of property, so all you have to do is cross the road. And the rest of the way you can walk from here, so I'm not completely convinced that it's not a safe routes for school.
Yeah.
But I'll talk to Jim.
That prioritizes things.
Oh, yeah, the 2 things that really provide TAP with, when you're talking about construction is safe routes to schools and ADA, handicap accessible. You know, when I first got on the TAP grant 9 years ago, that wasn't the case. You know, a lot of these communities built some really nice, trails around, paved trails, biking, walking. You know, Casper's got one that goes all the way around town, I think so is Cheyenne. And, that was the focus. TAP is Transportation Alternative Projects. originally, the Safe Routes for Schools was a separate program, and it got rolled into TAP, which has always been there, but the handicap, the ADA part of it really, ramped up about 3 years ago, and, you know, we've been funding, like, projects that redoing people's sidewalks downtown, places to bring them to ADA. And, I mean, it's taken a bunch of the money away from the trails outside, so, and I think they could accomplish a couple of those things over there in the way they apply for their grant, but anyway, all that TAP money is funneled through the federal government too. So Federal Highways sits in on those meetings and a whole bunch of other people, you know, that, not as many people as there in this room, there's only like 5 of us on the board. And there's all these people around that are telling you, you know, handicap accessible and on and on. So, it's an interesting process. Anyway, guess we have a motion and a second. Is there any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Connie, I guess, you know, you talk to David and see what needs to be on there, if it has to be something special. You can use my stamp.
I think it's electronic, it's like the statement of intent is just electronic questionnaire
Okay,
submitting.
okay, so,
And we'll make sure that Jim reaches out to you tomorrow, let you know how things go.
Okay, thank you. 'Cause there-
Coordinate.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
all right, thanks for coming.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. See ya. Okay, you got any other correspondence you wanna look at? Okay. Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Adjourn.